Let's now look at question 4, bank reconciliation from the November 2022 paper 2 paper. Let's begin. Right, so question 4, as I mentioned a few seconds ago, is looking at bank reconciliation. Remember, you can also get tested on debtors or creditors reconciliation, but in this particular case, it's obviously bank recon. Right, to kickstart the question 4.1 is rather straightforward. It's asking us to look at some statements and indicate whether the statements are true or false. Right, the instructions: write only true or false next to the question numbers in your answer booklet. What I'm going to do, grade 12s, is I'm going to answer this part of the question on the actual question paper. But obviously, if you've got the answer book, just write down your answer in your answer book. Right, the first statement: debit cards form part of bank charges. Now, we know debit cards, or debit card fees rather, is obviously an expense that the business needs to pay to the bank. So this statement is absolutely true. Debit card fees form part of bank charges. So this statement is true. Right, the next statement, 4.1.2. Interest on overdraft is recorded in the cash receipts journal. So they're telling me interest on overdraft, which is obviously a payment, it's an expense for the business, is recorded in the CRJ, and we know this is obviously false because interest on overdraft is recorded in the cash payments journal. Okay, so that one was an easy one. Right, and the last statement, 4.1.3, a debit balance in the bank statement reflects a favorable balance. Now, in terms of the bank statement, we know this is obviously external. This comes from the bank, and in their books, debit means unfavorable. So clearly, this particular statement is false. Okay, right, 3 statements, 3 easy marks. Guys, just a reminder, please always read through the statement carefully before you decide whether it is true or false. Right, let's now move on to the rest of the question. So 4.2 is on bank reconciliation, the actual recon process. The information provided relates to Surprise Stores. The business is owned by Themba. Themba receives the official bank statement on the 26th of each month. He uses this to do the bank reconciliation. EFTs are renumbered according to date order. Right, we'll get to the required in a bit because that's obviously us answering the question. Let's go to the info that is given to us. So from the information we can see, let's just go back a bit. Right, so from our info, right, we've got information A. So this deals with, on the 1st of July 2022, the bank account in the ledger reflected a favorable balance of 53,800. Then information B, guys, I'm not going to read through all of this because obviously we'll get to it as we're doing the question, but I'm just getting familiar with the info in front of me. So information B is the bank reconciliation statement prepared on the 30th of June 2022. So immediately this is the previous month's bank recon, and as expected in the previous month, okay, let's just go back there. Right, in the previous month there would be some outstanding deposits and EFTs, as we can see listed below. Right, then there's a bit more information in terms of the bank recon of the previous month. Okay, we'll get to that in a bit. Information C, as I can see, gives me the totals of my journals thus far, so CRJ and CPJ, so the cash receipts journal total, cash payments journal total, right? These are my provisional totals. And then I've got information D that relates to the July bank statement. Okay, so just a bit familiar with the info that I have in front of me, right? And now we can start with the actual recon process. So the first question, let's go to the actual question, right? Remember we did the true and false. So 4.2 is the bank reconciliation, and they want me to update the cash receipts journal total as well as the cash payments total. Okay, so updating CRJ and CPJ. Now immediately what I notice on my answer booklet is they already bringing down the provisional totals for me, right? So I don't need to bring this down. I can now begin looking at my adjustments or information that deals with the recon. Right, so we're going to begin with our first bit of information in terms of, let's just scroll down. Right, so in terms of the bank reconciliation statement for the previous month. So this is my starting point. The bank recon statement prepared on the 30th of June 2022 showed the following outstanding deposits and EFTs. So from what I can see, there's 2 outstanding deposits from last month, and also there are 2 outstanding EFTs for whatever reason. Right, so let's now go to the additional information. The deposit on the 15th of June 2022 appeared on the July bank statement as 15,500. An investigation revealed that the cashier at the time had resigned. The outstanding amount must be written off. Right, so from our info, let's just go back. Okay, so there's the deposit on the 15th of June. So an outstanding deposit for 19,500. Now remember guys, what does an outstanding deposit mean? It simply means that it is in our CRJ, but for some reason the bank is not acknowledging receiving 19,500. So on their side, it's like them telling you, but hang on, we didn't receive this amount of 19,500. Now the reason why they didn't receive 19,500 is obviously from the info that's given to us. So in terms of the July bank statement, they received 15,500. We then investigated, and obviously in terms of the cashier who's no longer with the business, it seems as though she recorded in our CRJ a deposit of 19,500, but she only deposited 15,500. So clearly there's some money missing, and the business, because the cashier is no longer employed at the business, they are now writing this off. Okay, so how much of loss has the business suffered? So obviously 19,500, right, less the actual amount of 15,500, and the loss should be 4,000. Okay, so how are we going to write off the loss of 4,000? Remember, we now need to remove this from our CRJ, which means we need to make an entry in the CPJ. So let's do that. Let's go to the cash payments journal, and let's now record this amount of 4,000 in the CPJ. So in the CPJ, we're now adding, or we are recording this amount of 4,000. Okay, right, that's completed. Let's now move on to the next part of our reconciliation statement for the previous month. Okay, so this amount we've now sorted. Let's now move on. So information 2, EFT 297 was correctly reflected as 6,900 Rand in the July bank statement. So again, if we look at EFT 297, right, there we go, 297. So in our CPJ, we obviously recorded this amount incorrectly as 9,600, but according to the info given, it appeared correctly on the bank statement as 6,900. So remember, we recorded 6,000 or 9,600 in our CPJ, which is clearly incorrect, right? For some reason, we've made a mistake, and this amount should only be 6,900. So we've obviously overstated a payment. So let's find out by how much. 9,600 minus the correct amount, 6,900, right? And we've overstated by 2,700. So there's 2,700 too much in the CPJ. How do we fix this? I can actually hear you guys shouting out, yes, you're correct. We need to make an entry in the CRJ. So let's do that. Let's go to our CRJ and let's now record this amount of 2,700 that we're now including. Remember, we're adding back, guys, in our CRJ 2,700. Okay, right, next bit of info. Okay, so this amount sorted. Right, information 3, the other outstanding amounts from the previous month appear on the July bank statement. In other words, I don't need to do anything, right, because these amounts here have now appeared and there's no adjustments for this. Okay, right, let's now move on to information D. Remember, guys, as I said earlier on, these totals have already been brought down for me, so I don't need to go and bring these down, right? They appear in my answer booklet. Right, information D. The following items on the July bank statement must still be recorded. So information 1, a debit card payment of 1,400 Rand for petrol for the business vehicle. Themba neglected to submit this transaction document to the bookkeeper. So remember, guys, debit card payment is an additional CPJ item. So let's now include the 1,400 in our CPJ. Okay, CPJ, remember we're adding 1,400. Okay, so that's an easy one. Right, next item that's appearing in the bank statement that still needs to be recorded. So we've done the first one. The direct deposit received from a debtor, 5,800 in settlement of his account of 6,000. So remember, direct deposit, it's going straight into our bank. And obviously we get this information once we receive the bank statement. So in terms of the amount, please guys remember, we are looking at the 5,800, the amount that was physically received, right? Remember, the amount he owed is 6,000. Yes, we have given him a discount of 200 Rand, but remember, the discount has no impact on the bank reconciliation, right? Or our journals. We don't have to show this in terms of updating our CRJ and CPJ. So that 5,800 is what I'm now including in my. So let's record the 5,800 in our CRJ. So 5,800. Again, a reminder, guys, remember that 200 discount, yes, it does go in the CRJ. However, it's got no impact on that bank column. So that's why I'm not recording it. Okay, right, let's move on to the next bit of information that still needs to be recorded. Okay, so remember, we've obviously done the first two, right? Information 3. A debit order to Palm Insurers for the business insurance, 1,800. Yes, absolutely easy. this goes in our CPJ as an additional payment. So let's not waste any time and let's record in our CPJ an amount of 1,800 that needs to be included. Right, moving on to the fourth item that still needs to be recorded. A direct deposit of 72,000 from Unitech College. This is an error on the bank statement as it does not apply to Surprise Stores. The bank was notified of this error. Right, so grade 12s, let's quickly understand this particular information. So for some reason on our bank statement, there is a deposit of 72,000 and it's from Unitech College and we have no idea where this money is coming from. So it's quite clear that the bank has made an error. So by mistake, instead of putting it into whoever's account it belongs to, by mistake, they've now deposited this money, these funds, into our bank account. Now remember guys, we are ethical. So we're not going to take someone else's money. We're going to inform the bank there's 72,000 in our account that doesn't belong to us, and the bank will then make the necessary adjustments in their books. So the question is, where do we record the 72,000? Remember, it's not our money. We cannot put it in our CRJ. So we are going to make a note of this on our bank reconciliation statement, which we're going to complete once we total our journals. Okay, so we're going to come back to this adjustment. Right, moving on. The total bank charges for the month, 825 Rand. So this is an additional CPJ entry. So let's go and put that in. 825 in our CPJ. Right, 825. So obviously it's a payment, so it needs to be recorded in the CPJ. And then finally, the last item that still needs to be taken into account, interest earned on savings account 260. So this is an additional receipt and it belongs in our CRJ. We are earning interest. So let's go to our CRJ and let's record this interest that we are receiving, an amount of 260. Okay, right, so what do we now do? We've obviously got to total our journals and then we're going to update our bank general ledger account. So let's do that quickly. So the cash receipts journal, guys, I'm not going to pull out my calculator, but we're simply adding these amounts. Remember, you're obviously beginning with the total of 101,200, this total here, adding up, that should give us an amount of 109,960. And then similarly, cash payments journal, we've got to add all these amounts. So if we total all these amounts, including the 135,215 given to us at the top, our updated cash payments journal total 143,240. Okay, just saving a bit of time there and not taking my calculator out, but I know you guys would have got those totals. Right, moving on. Okay, the next part of the question, calculate the correct bank balance in the general ledger on the 31st of July 2022. So guys, remember, you can always draw a T account or you can show a calculation. I'm going to do the T account because for me, I always enjoy the ledgers. Right, so bank, let's start with our opening balance at the beginning of July. Okay, so if we go to the very first bit of info, right, we're going to just quickly scroll down. Okay, so there we go. On the 1st of July, beginning of the month, the bank account in the ledger reflected a favorable balance of 53,800. So remember, in my records, a favorable balance is obviously a debit, 53,800. Okay, so let's take that through to our answer booklet. right, my opening balance 53,800. Okay, so to this balance, I'm obviously going to add my cash receipts total, and I'm going to subtract my cash payments total. So remember, we updated our books, our journals a few seconds ago. So here's my CRJ total, and obviously here's my CPJ total. Okay, so let's add. Okay, 109,960, right, from our CRJ, and we are subtracting from our CPJ, our cash payments total, 143,240. So 143,240. Right, remember guys, I'm obviously showing the ledger, but you don't have to. You can always obviously show a sum. So 53,800 plus 109,960 minus 143, let's fix that, 143,240. And that's going to give me my bank balance, right? Again, if you put this on your calculator, which I'm not going to do, you guys can do that, your answer or your correct bank total should be 20,520. Okay, right, let's move on to the last part of the question that wants you now to draw up a bank reconciliation statement at the end of July. Okay, so here guys, remember, depending on how this was actually taught to you in class, you could use one column or you could use two columns. So obviously choose the method that you know best. I'm going to use two columns. So I've got debit and credit. So remember, I always start off with balance as per bank statement, right? And if we go to our information, the very last bit of info, okay, there we go, information F, the bank statement balance on the 31st of July 2022 is not given to me. Okay, so it doesn't help me much there, but let's just put a question mark because we don't know what that balance is. Remember, it could be a debit or a credit. So for now, I'm just going to put a question mark. Right, to this bank reconciliation, I now need to credit any outstanding deposits. Right, so outstanding deposits, remember it's in my books, but for some reason the bank hasn't acknowledged this deposit. Right, so if we look at information E, which we haven't obviously looked at thus far, so entries in the cash journals after the 26th of July, so in other words, after the bank closes their books. So there is one deposit on the 29th of July for 29,500. And remember, I need to take this to my bank reconciliation statement as an outstanding deposit. So let's do that. So the 29,500. Okay, on the credit side, 29,500. Okay, right, now I'm looking at whether there are any outstanding payments or outstanding EFTs. Right, and remember, try and put this in number order if possible. Okay, so back to information E. There we go. So we've got two EFTs that are outstanding. 350 and 351. So remember, outstanding EFTs, obviously, once again, they are not in the bank statement, and I've got to show them as outstanding in the bank reconciliation statement. Right, so 4,200 is the first one, so let's put that through. Okay, so remember, we've got to record our EFT numbers. So the first one was EFT number 350, and remember these are debits because they are payments. Okay, that's going to reduce our bank statement balance 4,200, and the second EFT 351, which was an amount of 3,800. You can double check that in your answer booklet. Okay, right, so EFTs recorded. So let's go back. Okay, let's tick that off because that is now recorded. Okay, so I've recorded the deposit, recorded the EFTs. What else goes in my bank reconciliation statement? Remember, guys, we had this one adjustment. There we go. Right, adjustment 4, the direct deposit, that error that the bank made, and we now need to show this in the bank reconciliation statement. So remember, by mistake, they've put 72,000. Oh, mixing up my words there. By mistake, they've given us 72,000 that doesn't belong to us. So we are now going to tell the bank to debit our account. Debit means remove this money from our account because that money doesn't belong to us. It's not part of the business's funds. Right, so 72,000, let's go to our answer booklet. Right, and here we are telling the bank to debit incorrect credit, right? Or you can word this slightly differently, and the amount that they're removing is 72,000. Okay, right, and then finally it is a recon. So remember, we're reconciling our balance, our general ledger balance, to what's on the statement. So we've got to show our balance as per our ledger, right? As per our ledger, and that's a balance that we calculated a few seconds ago. So our correct bank balance, 20,520. Let's take that through, right? And remember, we ended up with a debit balance, a favorable balance of 20,520. So remember, guys, in our books, obviously this is favorable. It's a positive balance. Right, so the last bit is obviously now calculating what is this outstanding amount as per the bank statement. So let's pull our calculator out. Right, so we obviously, let's clear that. We are going to add all our debits, right, minus the amount on the credit side. Okay, so let's do that. So we've got an amount of 4,200. Right, to this amount we are adding the 3,800, the two EFTs, plus then we had the 72,000, and finally our bank balance of 20,520, and we are subtracting what we had on the credit side, 29,500, and that gives us the bank statement, the correct balance as per bank statement. It should be 71,020. So credit 7120, right? And remember, guys, your debit must equal to your credit. So if you add your debit, right, you ending up with 100,520. If you add the credit, you must get the same amount. So let's check that, right? Plus 29,500. And as you can see, we're getting the same amount, 100,520. Okay, right, and that's it for question 4.